Hey everybody, Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV and Yesshift here with
Steven Schinder.
He's the father, I'm the son. Wait, I always mess that up. I'm the
it's
father,
the other way around.
Okay, I'm older. I get it.
I was going to say.
He's more mature. That's why I get confused. And we're here with, out of over 50-year history, only the third person to take the esteemed drum throne of one of our favorite bands, biggest influences. Yes, welcome Jay Schellen, who's done so many other things. We're going to talk about that. But Jay, how are you? How's the tour going?
Great to see you. Good to see you, everybody.
We've been wanting to do this for a long time. I remember when I first started meeting Alan at his house and just getting friendly with him. He told me about Billy Sherwood, told me about World Trade, and shortly after that, you came along into World Trade, but you've done so many other things. And one of our fans pointed out, in fact, let me grab her name real quick, because I want to bring this up right now, not wait for the fan questions. Stephen, maybe you can look for it while I ask, but you go way back with Yes, and we're going to talk about how you met up with Tony Kaye, what that led to, but you're the only Yes member in the band who's played with Peter Banks.
Yeah,
which is quite interesting.
Tony Kaye, you're right.
Yeah, Sanders.
When we were doing
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was that, Steve? Who was it that asked that?
Sanders Thornburg.
That's right. Sanders Thornburg threw that in there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So yeah,
it's a great question. When we were doing the 50th anniversary, however, and Tony Kaye was joining us.
Right, I was there.
Had played with Peter, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because that's kind of the connection, that how it all happened is I was invited to Los Angeles to do a record by a buddy of mine. I was on the road at the time when I was 19, and I came to Los Angeles when I was 20. And that particular artist was managed by Tony Kaye. And I was a huge fan by then. I had Badger, I had all the individual bands, stuff, and every Yes record and bootleg.
Yeah,
so I've heard all the mistakes, right?
Yeah, I learned all the mistakes for sure.
I know. I love
the
that.
mistakes.
Yeah, and so I found myself just 3 hours in to California and going to Sound City, and we began working on this record, and it was managed by Tony Kaye. I couldn't believe it. I'm just like, oh, well, this is amazing. And so he found out that I played tennis, and we kind of cut the rehearsal early, and we just went to the tennis courts. So literally in that first day,
that's great.
Working at Sound City and playing tennis with Tony.
Were you careful not to kick his ass this first time you played him? You don't want to start the relationship off like that.
I know, but it didn't cross my mind because he nailed me on a couple of, I come to the net and he just like passed me with ease, and I'm going, okay, all right. Is it on? And then we've been that way ever since. We get on a tennis court and we just tear each other up, man.
Yeah.
So that they asked me to join Badfinger, and with Joey and Tommy and Tony. Right. And so I was playing with those guys as well. And this club called The Central was run by English roadies. Now it's the Viper Room.
Yep.
But yeah, and so Peter Banks wanted to put together a band and play the Viper or the Central. And Tony said, ask Jay, blah, blah, blah. So we started hanging out, and we played the Central twice a week, doing all the jazz stuff, because he put together a really cool jazz band with horns and everything. Yeah. We were doing Miles Davis and all kinds of different stuff, and then Yes stuff and this kind of thing. It was great. And Peter was really cool. Hung out a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah. Amazing.
So looking into Badfinger a little while back, I saw that the lineup you were part of might have been after the Say No More album. Were there any studio recordings? I remember reading something about that, but what happened with all that?
That's a good question. And something is going to happen, according to Tony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we did a recording in Beverly Hills, and so it's out there. There was some really nice stuff, and it's the last stuff that Tommy and Joey played together, and the last stuff that Tommy has recorded.
And this was in the early 80s?
Yes. This must have been maybe
82, I
82.
think.
Yeah.
82.
Interesting.
Right.
Very interesting. Cool. As a drummer, I've got all kinds of questions, and Steve's got questions, and we've got fan questions. We'll cram as much as we can into a shortish amount of time because, folks, Jay's going to take us out onto the stage, and Wi-Fi prohibiting or not prohibiting, allowing, he's going to give us a tour of the stage, but mainly his kit. It's obvious that Yes, was an influence in Peter. Who might some influences be, not just on drums, but on drums and also other bands, Jay, that people might not expect to hear? Sometimes as a prog artist or a metal artist or a traditional jazz artist, we get stereotyped that, oh, well, that must be our only influences. What might be some influences that would surprise people who know what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, I grew up in New Mexico. I'm from Albuquerque. And it's a real cultural town.
Yep.
One of my good friends who's older than me, I was playing with older musicians all the time, and it was Randy Castillo. Played with Ozzy and so forth. We're really close.
Jett.
We were Lita Ford.
Lita Ford, sorry, Lita.
Mm-hmm.
The other one.
Yeah, and so we were always doing drum circles at the Indian villages, and my grandmother lived on the Isleta reservation there. So we would always do that kind of thing. So that's an influence that I can't even describe.
Oh, yeah.
But it's about being centered and kind of trying to feel the pulse of things rather than think about meter.
Yeah. There's a difference.
And Tony Williams, then, I was very much into jazz fusion and all that. And Tony Williams described it really very well. And Jack DeJohnette as well, that I play the pulse. I don't play the meter.
Right.
Because especially, and this applies to Yes right now, probably always has been, except for a few 80s eras. It's flesh and bone and blood performing.
Would it be fair to say, yeah, I love the analogy. Would it be fair to say that meter is the math and pulse is the feeling, what you feel, and the cohesiveness amongst the players?
Yeah, that's a pretty astute way to say it, I think, because
cool.
Meter is a more kind of finite definition.
Yeah, it's set in stone. It's time, it's math, it's timing.
Our blood pulses, pulse is a little different.
Yeah.
There's movement there. So that's the idea. So I played a lot of jazz fusion. My first instrument, just like Alan, was piano. That was my classical piano for years and years, but I walked through the drum store to get to my piano lessons.
Oh, that's
there you go.
The bug was there waiting to bite you.
Yeah, those shiny objects, I couldn't get past them. But yeah, so a lot of jazz fusion, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever. I love Davis Sanchez Band. I got into a lot of my dad's old jazz records that featured DeJohnette, Dave Tuff, and I loved all of the Tony Williams stuff, Billy Cobham's things, Mahavishnu Orchestra. This was kind of my world in a way, but prior to all of that maturity, I was into Herman's Hermits,
the
Monkees, the Beatles, of course, right?
Yeah.
Huge.
Right.
And Three Dog Night. I thought Floyd Sneed was killer.
He's great.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Led Zeppelin came out.
Yeah, we've heard of them.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to talk about, getting the blood moving, right? That changed a lot of things. So I started really feeling this, and that was very organic too, right? Blues, but played with something else that I hadn't heard yet. And mix all that in with the jazz and the whole business and all this stuff. I just had this feeling. And these older musicians that I would play with, they taught me how to listen and jam. We would jam on Steely Dan stuff. We would jam on Allman Brothers things. We never left a song alone. There wasn't really an ending with these guys. And they taught me how to keep my ears open. And if you're listening and reacting and playing with your ears open, all these influences can have an influence. It's not that they influence you in the morning, and then by the afternoon, you're not influenced by them anymore, right?
Right. Good point. I like that.
And then you let it out, right? And that continued on because through that combination, I mean, that's the definition of yes, really. It's progressive, it's rock, it's organic, and I loved it. So I was a Bruford fan. Definitely. Those early records, that was a thing, right? And then, but when Yes songs came out, the same thing happened to me that happened with John Bonham. I heard Alan, who didn't have much time to pick up all this material, and you can tell by the way he refined it over the years. But Yes songs had that raw, pure energy.
Oh,
Yeah.
And it was visceral, man. I mean, that changed everything for me. That was like it, right? That was my guy kind of thing. And even though I'm influenced by so many others, and I've been so fortunate through my great friends at Zildjian and Remo is to do different shows and clinics and gatherings with, my heroes,
Yeah.
Louis Belton and just all these different people. And it's an amazing, beautiful thing. But through it all, there was this Alan thing. And then by meeting Tony early, I was hanging out with all the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Badfinger, he went over to do 90125, and we were taking a break. Tommy went back to England, and then I went on the road with Danny Johnson and the Bandits, and we were opening for ZZ Top on the Eliminator tour, so couldn't pass that up.
Right. Huge tour.
Yeah, and so we would just all kind of be together at the Central too, because it was an English roadie bar. And one time King Crimson was in town, and Bill was playing across the street, and we all came over afterwards. And this particular place, the Central, I mean, I'm a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, and in a booth in the corner every night is like John Mayall, members of Elton John's band, Dudley Moore. I mean, just the English folks, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a particularly crazy night that night. The King Crimson was there, and Chris was there, and Alan was there, and it was just like, wow, this is awesome. And I was the house drummer.
Oh, wow.
And then also I played on Bob and Keith's Tuesday night jam night, so I just would stay up there. Yeah. Okay, who's coming in, Yeah. And I got to play with so many great people. Some of the ones I just mentioned, Robin Ford and John Mayall and all that stuff. And I won't go into the details, but I was cajoled to go in the back room with a very pretty girl. And so I was kind of neglecting my stage duties, and I'm in the back, and all of a sudden I hear, "Where's that drummer?" Right? And anyway, so I go, "Oh man, I gotta go." And Chris comes through the door, big as life.
Yeah.
And he grabs me and throws me over his shoulder. And he marches me out there, and I'm on his shoulder like that, and everybody's going,
"Oh my gosh."
Stage, right? So crazy stuff like that was going on so much back then. And so the influences continued, definitely with Terry Bozzio, of course. I mean, UK and
Yeah.
even before that, all the Zappa work, everything. I mean, I that's one of the ones that goes back
Yeah.
with the mock and all that kind of thing. Simon Phillips, very much so too, was work with Jeff Beck, so on and so forth. Because I was really intrigued by the rhythm patterns that could be created using ghost strokes.
Yeah.
Buford started that in my head, and then you pick up on it, and then but then there's a visceral thing about Terry Bozzio's rhythm, which is very organic, and that's when I started thinking, if you watch a drummer's body language, he will tell you where his music and his beat is coming from.
I love that. Yeah.
Because Terry would lean in and just, he had this thing going, and you could feel it in his, because the separation between the kick drum and the snare drum is everything.
Yeah.
If it's dead center, that's one thing, but you move the kick a little bit, leave the snare where it is. Now you've lengthened the snare note to the back of the kick, right? If you move them both, then you're just playing behind the beat.
Yeah.
Leave the kick there, and you move the snare back very West Coast, right? Then you've shortened the distance.
Yeah. Hang in front of it.
Yeah, so there's a different, it gives a pulse thing. And the body, that's kind of how you end up doing that naturally, is in your body motion, digging. And Alan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot to do with that. There's very much to do with that. So even their body language was influencing me and everything. And I would just take all that and developing my own voice, which was just like a gumbo.
That's cool. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so the Central is where you were able to play with Peter Banks, right? Well, how was that?
It was great. He was a really very free and easy player. Very, how would you say, kind of sparky. He would just get up there and he would just energize and just go. And it was a lot of fun. And we hung out after every show at his apartment, hanging out there. And because I had just kind of gotten to town, and the band was really good, really tight. And we were doing a lot of crazy things. And in the afternoon or in that evening, we would discuss what he wanted to do the next day. And it would sometimes be off the wall. It'd be like a really kind of new version of a Miles Davis tune or something like that. I said, well, you better let Scott, the horn player, know, because he's going to have a heck of a time. He goes, no, well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So it was really spontaneous. And yet, again, you had to use your ears.
Yeah.
And I had my cheat sheets. It looked like I was throwing napkins on the floor.
Right.
All cheat sheets. And we would just play and play and play. And I got so much work out of those performances. I was doing lots of records and sessions and all these different things. It was fortunate. I mean, to this day, I'm just so grateful.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's do this, folks. We're popping in a clip of Jay playing while he takes us out to the stage. When we come back, we'll be out on the stage and he'll give us a tour of his kit. Then Steve's going to ask another career question that's more contemporary for Jay, and we'll read some fan questions too. So check out this clip of Jay. Okay, so we're back. I hope you enjoyed that clip of Jay, and here is Jay in the cockpit. You know, there's a reason. There's a reason why piano players are on a bench and guitar players sometimes sit down on a chair or a stool. Drummers are on the throne because they are truly the kings and queens of what drives a band, right, Jay?
I agree, man. That's it. We were banging on the logs, and we were the communicators.
Exactly.
You know,
Other than the voice, we were the first instrument, you know? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's see if the Wi-Fi holds up. Right now, Jay's frozen. Sorry, that was I was faking that. But Jay actually is frozen. There we
Oh,
go.
he's back.
Oh,
He's
wait,
back.
now we're back. Now we're
He's
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I may have to hold it.
Okay, so Jay, give us a quick tour of your kit, and then you can run back to the dressing room area, and we'll finish it out there if the Wi-Fi gets weak here.
Here we go.
There we
How's
go.
this?
Nice.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks
I'll
great.
ask you a couple questions. Anything you want, right? Here.
Yeah, looks like
Yeah.
looks like the ride cymbals and a custom. Is the whole setup that same series, or do you mix and match a bit?
I've got Ks. I've got a lot of dark K crashes. I like those a lot. I use these effect cymbals.
Yep, I
a
love
lot.
those.
Yeah, I have fun spinning them
Nice.
during the show, and everybody kind of goes, "Wow, that's what is that?" This is, and I like ping rides. It's an A
Nice.
custom ping, but you can see the crashes pretty much are
Oh,
dark,
hammered dark K. Yeah.
which I love them because that's the other thing that I keep getting messages. So yeah, here's more effect symbols, and this is interesting. For And You and I play a physical crotale.
Where is it?
seeing
Oh,
that?
there it is. Yeah, now we
There
can.
it is.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
Very
keep
cool.
it organic, right? No electronic.
Very
And,
cool.
Yeah.
And your toms, the front toms, are those all the same size except for one of them?
No, they're let's see.
They
Let's
look the
figure out-
same from the long shot.
Let me see if I can flip here real quick.
Okay.
Let me do a flip. Where's my, how do I get to it? Julian, do you know how to flip? If I want to flip my shot?
It should be a camera icon with like
No,
circular
okay.
arrows.
I need to flip mine. Okay, there it is.
There we go.
See? He's a Julian extraordinaire. He's the man.
Cool.
Okay. So much easier.
And
Yeah,
if you
so-
turn it horizontally, we'll get more in the view. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
there we go.
Okay. So no, they're all different sizes.
Okay.
8 inch,
Uh-huh.
right? 10,
Mm-hmm.
12, 14, but it's a square drum that John Good made for me. So it's a little, it's not quite as deep.
Yeah.
So it's 14 by 14, which sounds really tight, really cool.
Yeah. That's cool.
Then 16 and an 18.
Nice.
And the kick is a 22,
Cool.
9,000 pedals,
Mhm.
double pedals. And yeah,
Awesome.
for Relayer next year, we're going to get into some more adding on to the kit.
Great.
Because we had planned to do this together, Alan and I, and I designed a double drum riser
Oh,
as
wow.
well that we could share. And then it rotated. So at times there would be his set featured, then it rotated a little bit, then there'd be my set featured, and
Oh,
then
cool.
then you could center it, and then we both were just slightly off angle of each other, and we both were going to play Relayer, right? You know,
Right.
Gates Delirium and all of the stuff. So there's
Awesome.
a front.
Yeah.
And-
Beautiful.
So we're going to add some stuff into some different areas on the set for that year. It'll be a lot of fun.
That's cool. What is
Will
your
be a-
snare, Jay? Is it nickel on chrome, or it was hard to tell?
Yeah, basically I have two, and one is when I was performing with Alan, there was a big difference. This is my DW version,
Oh,
and it's solid copper,
oh, nice.
and it's amazing. It sounds unreal. And when I would perform with Alan, what we were looking for is something that didn't change in volume too much.
Yeah,
Also kept the consistency of sound, you know.
yeah,
And it just so happened that in my years early on, I wanted that Alan White's, sound, right?
yeah.
So what did I have in my closet?
It's a Ludwig.
It's a 1973 Ludwig hand hammered
Wow.
That's amazing.
snare. So it was almost identical, although I got to say, Alan has one of the most unique snares on the planet.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
incredible. Can you show me how to flip that again? And I'll talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Let's see, is it flipped again?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for that tour.
Yeah, so that snare was really, really special. And this one seemed to match it just perfectly. And
Cool.
we've integrated, the DW snare now.
Yeah. And the heads are clear Remo ambassadors on top and bottom, or are they emperors?
Ambassador bottom, Emperor top.
Got it.
Um,
Very cool.
I would love to use ambassadors. They would sound so crisp and expressive, but they would last one show.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be
They're
all I
single
did.
ply.
Yeah, and the Remo Emperors are the go-to. We just
Yeah.
love them today. Just love them.
I have the on my big kit, which is a big progressive kit, I have the color tone heads, and they are basically the ambassadors but colored, or emperors rather. And they sound great. And I haven't had bottom heads since 1983. I just love that open breathing sound. They just sound so good. Yeah.
Phil Collins. That's Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Baby. He was another big influence.
Yeah.
Brand X, Genesis. Oh man, all
Yeah.
that.
Even
Huge.
back in the day, Carl Palmer didn't have bottom heads. And
Yep.
when Alan in the Tormato tour had some North drums mixed in,
North drum.
Same thing with Billy Cobham. He had the Clear Fibes kit with the big couple North drums. Neil Peart had a bunch of concert toms with it. It's very old school, but I just love the sound, and it works. So I'm an old guy, old school. What can I tell you?
Yeah, I'm with you on that all the way.
Yeah, and this is working. So we'll stay right here, and Steve's going to move the conversation to a more contemporary career question for you. Then we'll read a few fan questions and get you done in time for the line check.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a couple at the moment. One of them, we recently watched that video of the Alan White tribute concert in Seattle. So what was it like getting all that together and the set list? Like, is there any behind the scenes stuff you can share?
Well, we were finishing our tour of Japan
Right.
just prior to that. So we literally had 2 weeks maximum to finalize what we had been discussing in the weeks prior to us leaving to Japan. And there was so much to get worked out there. And I got to give everybody a whole lot of credit. And Alan's wife, Gigi, did so much. She put so much love and her heart and soul into that. And it was a lot of work. And everybody came together, and whatever we needed to do, we were going to get done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the spirit, and the spirit was so strong. And I really enjoyed playing with the White Band the day before at the Salmon Days Festival.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that was just great. I mean, you just even in the UK and Japan this year, where we were honoring Alan and playing the memorial, footage. That was put. The room was filled with love and warmth and just the greatest vibes you could ever
play a note of music in. You know,
That's awesome.
it's yeah, it's like stepping into your grandmother's arms or something. You know what I mean? It was just,
Yeah.
it's just love everywhere, right?
I was going
And
to say that totally reflects him, you know, because that's just the kind of guy you are.
exactly. And the same at Seattle. It was just a lot of love, you know. And I mean,
Yeah.
there was moments that were very lovely and difficult. One in particular was when Imagine was coming up, and Michael DeRosier had been on the set that I was using, or I was going to be using, and Michael's a really tall guy, so I had to do a little bit of
Adjust.
adjust.
Yeah.
And behind me was John Lennon and a lot of footage of those sessions and such, and this and that, and then it finished up with a close-up of a very young Alan. He was right there behind me, and I was kind of starting to lose it just a little bit. And then the opening notes of Imagine began, and I just turned around on the set, and then we played Imagine, and it was hard to describe. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I think
Magical. It was a great tribute. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was good.
Cool.
Yeah. So outside of Yes, you're also in a band with some other guys we may have heard of. It's a band called Arc of Life. So, and of course, the second album, Don't Look Down, is coming up in a few weeks. I think on the 18th, if I'm not mistaken. So, what can you tell us about the upcoming album and future plans with the band?
And how it might differ from the first album. What could people expect? And as much as you want to leave it a surprise, that's fine.
Surprise is always good, so I won't give away too much, except that I think you're going to find that it is a bit more exploratory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's where our roots are, and you know, it's kind of what's coming out at the moment, you know.
And will you guys tour?
Well, it's something that's always on our mind and in the realm of possibility, but Yes is very busy, you know, especially with Relayer coming up and that kind of thing. But there is possibilities, you know, maybe getting together with some of our other prog band friends, and you know, and Billy's playing and in Asia, of course. Yeah. So they've got plans, etc. So for now, I think it's always on our mind if we find an opportunity. So we would hope to. We would love to do it. Yeah.
Something to consider, if I may throw something in the imaginary suggestion box, with everybody's such busy and staggered schedules that are probably a lot like a checkerboard, perhaps you guys could plan one or two, you know, a few months apart, live stream concerts where maybe there's a few, you do it at a venue where it's easy to get a few people there, but make it a live stream thing so people can still experience you guys performing together without worrying about a crazy tour schedule.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was just talking about that with the nice gentleman that drove me here.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the way it's going. I mean, because after being in Vegas with Raiding the Vault so long, the audience comes to you, right? All the travel involved and things like that. So it's coming. It is definitely coming. I know what you mean, though. The streaming from different locations. That, I mean, during the great pause, people were experimenting with that. There was a lag issue to a certain degree, especially with volume kind of instruments and trying to give a real cohesive performance.
Yeah.
But it's coming, right?
Yeah.
Coming.
I would love to see that. And a couple of the quick things I don't want to forget about or leave untouched before if there's time to go to fan questions, is two things. One, talk about Raiding the Rock Vault, and then tell everyone a bit about your book as well and where they can get that.
Okay, sure. Well, Raiding the Rock Vault was a production. It was written by John Payne from and David Kirschenbaum, who's a Grammy Award-winning writer and producer. So it began off the script. I won't go into it too graphically, I guess, but it was a very involved thing of we had messed up our planet. We wanted to send our culture and our beloved items off to other planets. And if we get our stuff together, we'll go back and get them someday. You know what I mean? Kind of like we're squirrels. We're basically interstellar squirrels. Okay. So that was a rock vault that got shot off.
Mhm.
And then later we did get ourselves together and we went and rediscovered the rock vault. And when it opened, that was the show.
That's
So
so
we
cool.
went from the 60s all the way through the 80s and stopping at the 90s. And it was an all-star band, Hall of Famers, platinum artists, everything. And it was an amazing show. It was at the LVH, the International.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
big,
Remember that?
big one, right?
Oh, yeah.
3,000 rooms, the Rat Pack, the whole. That was where Elvis did his.
Yeah. That's
his
Bobby
thing.
Morris, the drummer. Bobby Morris for Elvis was his musical director there for 10 years. Yeah. Legendary place. You got a picture of Bobby. I have it right here. Bobby gave me this. He was one of my first Drum Talk TV interviews.
Oh yeah, there's the dude. Look at him. Yeah,
Yeah.
look at the two of them.
Yeah. Back in
You
the
got-
day, the Las
Yeah.
Vegas Hilton.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of a venue like that?
I know.
Or even rename it? It's just dropped
I
in.
know.
It's crazy.
It gets sold and it changes, and
Yeah,
That's
some things
kinda-
need to be left alone.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
That sounds like it was a fun
so-
gig, though.
It was an amazing show. It was amazing. There was lasers, dancers, actors, everything, and an extreme band of the most amazing singers and everything. And we were just having a ball. Audience would come to us. It was great. We did the LVH, then we bounced over to the Tropicana, then we bounced over to the Hard Rock, and now it's still playing at the Rio.
Yeah.
In a different form. It has had to kind of scale down a little bit from the big old, days.
Pause.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the best times ever, and it's true for all of us.
That's great.
Time there.
And talk about your book, your unique book that talks about some unique techniques for drummers.
Yeah. This is a technique that when I was about 16, I worked in Lucchetti Drum and Guitar Shop. And we had some great clinicians come through and this and that. And I got to meet them all. And I get a lesson from all of them, Louis Belson and Billy Cobham and Buddy Rich, Ed Shaughnessy.
Oh, wow.
Just all kinds. And I learned so much from all these guys. And Alan Dawson was a drummer, jazz drummer that taught at Berkeley School of Music.
Mhm.
He came through, and I set up his kit and did everything, and I got my lesson, right? But what I had noticed when he was playing is that he had a left foot that was doing something amazing to me, because no matter what he was doing, this left foot was just like it was on automatic. I was thinking, what is going on? And so he said, I'm going to show you, and it's going to change your life, basically, right? So, not to get into too much detail or lengthy detail, the idea is, Julie, can you flip this? Is it okay if I flip this and I'll show
Yeah,
you a couple?
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah. I see. You go to that. I got you. Okay.
Cool.
So the idea is for a drummer to have a solid seat, right? So that you can engage your core and feel centered,
Yeah.
low. So you feel solid, right? So some drummers will bounce.
Yeah.
If you're on a stool like this and you lift this foot off the ground, you lose balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
One foot's coming off the ground. So here I am centered, lift this foot off. And so now you have to compensate. And then you're playing the kick drum with the other. So there's a slight state of imbalance. You're kind of have things on the ground and off the ground sometimes at the same time. So the rocking motion is basically a motion that will give you a quarter note sound if you want it, but your foot is in an eighth note motion, so you're higher up the denominations.
Oh,
And you can control volume just by how you do it. You can move back for a note check, right? So
that's interesting.
if you were going to play your ride with it, if you play all eighth notes, right?
Yeah.
And then if you feel like changing it and you want to put it on the and, it's so very simple. Heel down first.
Oh, okay. How
So when
cool.
your heel's down, then it goes on the and then if you were playing, I call it super halftime, right?
Super halftime.
Yeah, you can go to 16ths on it. Oh. Boom, boom. You know what I mean? So you can put space, and the thing that it does for you, you could do it even when you're sitting on a stool anytime, is you just go ahead and let your foot keep the time.
Yeah.
And it is automatic. I could make a sandwich, order a pizza. You know,
Right.
It doesn't matter. It will stay where you put it. So I use a song starter, which is just a simple metronome that moves in a, kind of pendulum manner.
Yeah.
And then I just lock this foot onto that, and then I count in the song, and then the song can maintain the pulse.
That's
Pulse,
cool.
like we were talking about. It's not
Yeah.
hard time like a click.
Right.
It's pulse. And you just learn, if you learn it early enough on, you learn all your techniques based against that as a quarter note, but in an eighth note motion. So with Yes, it's particularly awesome.
That's
I mean, I've
great.
never
And
been able
that's, I'm sorry, that book is at jayschellen.com.
Yeah, and we're currently sold out, but I'm going to get some new, books into production.
Cool.
Oh,
I might
nice.
be teaming up with a publisher who,
Right.
it's hard to describe. I use clear laminates in it because the left foot and this is one ostinato pattern. Right?
Yeah.
Then there's beats, kick and snare, and exercises to develop your left hand and your foot and the whole thing as the secondary. So those are printed on a page. The left foot and the right hand are a lamination that goes over the page.
Oh,
And
that's
then
neat.
you can get 25 different laminations of different ways to play this
So you just
pattern.
overlay them differently to get different results,
Yeah.
different patterns. That's smart.
Exactly.
I like that.
And it's organic. I did it in 93 or 4 or something like that.
That's great.
So I've been approached about turning it into something that's more web-based or CD-ROM based and that kind of thing. So I'm going to
Great.
be working for
Nice.
sure. But I'll tell you, it allows me to play all the polyrhythmic stuff. Like look at Close to the Edge, right?
Yeah.
4/4 halftime or 6/8. It depends on how you want to count this, right? So Bill,
Yeah.
the whole thing playing halftime but thinking 6/8.
Yeah. A relayer.
And
Gates
it's
Delirium.
like-
I think of another one with that,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
all those different polyrhythmic
Yeah.
parts.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
with this automatic pulse, it's going to move against everything.
Right.
And if you're comfortable feeling a bar of 2, basically, because it's 1, 2, 1, 2, really flowing through all the 8s of 6/8 and 7/8 and 13/8 divided and subdivided, right?
And I can see how that would naturally improve someone's timing as well. There's no way it won't. Yeah.
Yeah, you're smooth. You can navigate complex corners and all this stuff. Just listen to Steve Smith.
Yeah.
One of my
Yeah.
favorites. He uses this too.
Yeah.
Right? And Carrie Lynn Carrington.
Yeah.
she
Carrie
uses
Lynn
this-
Carrington. Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about space. The
Yeah.
space in between the notes. It's so important. So this
Yeah.
helps you get that.
That's great. Thanks for that. Steve, why don't you kick us off? We'll take turns reading some fan questions. There's a couple we've asked. There's a couple that I'm like, oh, wow, I was going to ask that. So we left some for the fans as well. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
You still got a few minutes, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Go for it, Steve.
Yes. So, and one of the questions that we have is from Adam Parrish, who is actually the current keyboardist for Gordon Killtrap. So that's that's interesting. It says, "Hi Jay, I would like to say well done for stepping into the big shoes which Alan left. I saw the UK tour earlier this year, and you did an amazing job. When I listen to your playing, I can definitely identify the Alan and Bill influences. I was wondering if there will be any further Unruly Child releases in the near future. I really enjoyed the album Our Glass House."
Yeah, I think Unruly Child is going to carry on just like an Unruly Child should, you know, and in its unruliness, we'll never really know exactly how or when, right? But it's always going to carry on because, I mean, the songwriting team of Guy Allison and Bruce Gowdy and Marcy Free is phenomenal, you know. So those songs, you know, I'll hop in any possible time I can do it. So I would just say Unruly Child gonna just live on for sure.
Here's a question I love that I was gonna ask. This is from fan Gina Casulo. And she says, and I know there's 10 answers for this, Jay, but see how take the challenge of let's see how much you can narrow it down. So if you need to pick from over, that's cool. Does Jay have a favorite song he likes to play live with? Yes. And is there a particular song that he'd love to play live that he hasn't yet? And then I'm going to add to that question after you answer.
I can do that. I can do that right now. I am narrowing it down. Let me just say that first.
Okay.
Right, playing Close to the Edge is so much fun. It's so much fun because it's just once you really have dived into that, right? It's just kind of the same thing in a way as Gates of Delirium.
Yeah.
It's like into a Picasso painting, you know, it's going to just take. So Close to the Edge right now is so much fun to play. And what I would like to play is Sound Chaser. It's coming up.
Great. That's awesome.
We had the whole tour down and then the pandemic hit because we would have been playing it in 2020.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to going back to that.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to add to that question. And there's two ways you can answer it, one or the other. So is there a song that you would love to play that Yes has either never played live or haven't played in a very long time? So what comes to mind, you know, things like from
Sound Chaser falls in that category.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
I haven't done that like long time, but let's see, what would it be? What would it be? I mean, Steve keeps threatening to bring out 5% of Nothing.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Wow. Let's see. What haven't we done?
Anything
I would like to do the other sides of Topographic.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
We've done Ritual and we've done Revealing.
Just so you know, correct answer.
You bet. I would love to, and we've talked about it. I think that could be coming.
That's great. And me also. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, me also being a fellow Yes bootleg collector since I was 12 or 14, I have the original, all of the Tales concert where they also only played Close to the Edge and then Roundabout. I have that. I've got everything from like 1974 forward, I believe, or 73 forward. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I've
got some deep stories I'll tell you guys privately. I don't know if it's for all of this, but
yeah, we could always do this again. You know, this is an open door. Yeah. Steve, why don't you give us another fan question for Jay, Steve?
Yeah, Steven Sullivan asks would like details on how you learned the tracks on Relayer, and if you also had any advice from Alan on that, or isolating bits from the 5.1 mix or just listening to the record over and over like in the old days? Like, how do you approach Relayer?
Well, I listened to it, and this is why I was able to get Topographic Oceans down so quickly for that tour, because I only had 3 days notice
Yeah,
to
that's
do
a
the
great
drama
tour.
Topographic tour. Is I read all of the Hobbit series and the Lord of the Rings and the
Oh.
whole thing to Topographic Oceans and Relayer playing in the background. So subliminally, they just
That's
sounded
great.
like songs to me from the beginning. They just sounded like songs. I knew
Yeah.
I knew where it was going. I knew where it was coming from. There's never any issues with that. So then I could identify the parts, and I know the parts. Then the struggle to come up with is the motivation, and then to me, look at the body language and trying to imagine the body doing these things. So I really do a lot of visualization in a way. And I've known Alan for quite a while. When I would ask him details on certain things, he would tell me certain ways of like how they counted the beginning of Ritual, you know, just those hits and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I went, oh, well, that's interesting. They used to love to toy around with certain things, you know, just for fun. And then they became parts, you know, and it was all counted in eights. And that's why they sound like softballs just dropping in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So I would just do those two things, learn the parts, play to the records until I could feel exactly what he was feeling. In my mind's eye.
Yeah.
And be able to execute it smoothly and with passion and listen to the dynamics. And I got to say, every Yes song in the process of learning is a 10-layer cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can get the first 5 layers and you can burn the song, you know? It ain't deep enough yet. All of a sudden, another layer exposes itself and you go, whoa, and then another layer, and then
Well, I
another
like
layer.
that you use the term exposes itself, because the more you learn, the more layers you get. That's how you see those other layers underneath, because now you got that part in your mind and you're not, it's not, those other parts aren't clouded by that, because now you got that. It's a really interesting process.
And that,
I mean, there's a reason it's called Relayer, right?
Yeah. And you know, I mean, this is why this music, I believe, is always going to live in the minds and hearts of so many people, because it's got those layers. And you can spend years analyzing one song. And where it came from, to how it was recorded, to then how it was performed, and then how did they live perform. It's all this amazing thing.
Yeah, it's like a living, breathing organism when you put it that way. You know, the studio version, the live version, which tour of the live version, you know, all these different, those are additional layers, you know.
I listened to all of them, and including ABWH.
Yeah.
You know, because that was an interesting take on Close to the Edge.
Yeah, that's Steve's favorite version, actually.
Yeah.
It really shows. Well, hopefully not anymore. But yeah, I listen to all that stuff, and it all goes in there, and then more layers are exposed, and then pretty soon, boy, you're down to it, and that's a great place to be. But it doesn't happen quickly.
Cool. We'll take one more question. I'll pick one more.
All right.
How about, let's go with, let me just scan these real quick. We're gonna, okay, some of this we've kind of covered in. Okay, we got that. I just saw one that went, okay. So are there any, who's on your bucket list of a few living artists that you would just love to work with that you have not worked with yet?
Yeah, and that question's from Julian Ruiz.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julian.
Yeah.
Who's on that bucket list?
Wow. Wow. Well, yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. But what could that be? Because I'm kind of like sitting right in the middle of the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, seriously, it's
so
like
think
that.
outside genre. Think maybe outside
Yeah.
the box a bit, outside genre, and who.
Well, I'd like to play with Chick Corea.
Cool.
I mean, I love Dave Weckl, and his style is so cool, and that would just be so much fun to get into. It would be fun to play around with King Crimson. You know,
Oh,
would be
yeah.
really good. Fripp, and I mean, I like Brian Eno.
Do you have a favorite album or tour you'd like to retour with them? Mine would be Three of a Perfect Pair.
Not in particular, I suppose. Court of the Crimson King.
Yeah.
You know, and
Classic.
yeah, all that stuff. And then conversely, I'm also a big fan of Willie Nelson.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Is
Willie
he your
Nelson.
weed connection? Just kidding.
Sorry?
I said, is he your weed
Oh,
connection? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You know, I mean, I love playing behind a melody, you know, and I love
Yeah.
supporting sing. That's really what I love, that supporting
Yeah.
singers. We're so fortunate to have such an amazing singer, beautiful singers, John Davison. You know?
Absolutely.
And amongst the complexity of all of this, I'm still thinking of supporting and giving the singer the
Yeah.
the support for all the majesty possible, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of country music and stuff like that, it appeals to that side of me, where it's finding the exact right place for the beats, being reliable, and give everybody in the band supreme confidence to groove.
Yeah.
And that whole thing
Space to do their thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you do it, and smiles are everywhere, and it's just like, yeehaw.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful bucket list. Thanks for sharing that.
Okay, good.
And
Thanks.
Jay, we'll do this again after the tour, after you're home, settled. We'll get together, we'll talk more. There's always so much to talk about, especially with drumming and especially with Yes, what a great combination. We're simulcasting this on both of our programs on all of our different channels. I'll send you links. Please say hi to Billy. I've known Billy since 1997. Alan introduced me. We had Steve Howe on about a month ago, 3 weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago it was. Tell him we said hi.
I will.
And the other guys, I don't know if Jeff or John will remember me, but I've met Jeff a few times with Alan in working with Alan. So just wishing you guys well. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm glad we did it this way. So Steve was able to be part of it and carry the Yesshift side. Yeah.
Yeah. This is great. This is great.
Awesome.
Really had a good time. Okay.
Thanks everybody so much, folks. You can follow Yesshift at facebook.com/Yesshift. You can write us with ideas or love mail, hate mail, whatever at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us, the audio version, on anchor.fm, and find us on YouTube at youtube.com/ is it Yesshift?
Not yet. Just search Yesshift on YouTube.
Okay, just search Yesshift.
And
Drum Talk TV is like a giant amoeba blob. We're everywhere. Over 1 million fans on facebook.com/Yesshift. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Vimeo, and a new platform, TikTok, and another new platform soon to come that'll blow your minds, folks. Yeah, I couldn't even get out. Thanks, everybody.